Welcome, travelers! When it comes to Genshin Impact, there's no shortage of powerful beings roaming the vast world of Teyvat. But let's be real, few can hold a candle to the Archons. These godly figures don't just rule over the Seven Nations with their unmatched mastery of the elements. They bring some serious firepower, or water power, or wind power, you get the idea. Lucky for us, these divine protectors occasionally decide to grace our accounts and fight alongside us. Who wouldn't want a literal god in their party, right? In today's video, we're diving headfirst into the mightiest Archons in Genshin Impact, ranked from wow, they're strong, to okay, I need this character right now. Whether they're shielding you from harm, dishing out elemental destruction, or yes, even taking a motorbike for a spin straight through enemy lines, these Archons know how to make an entrance. So buckle up, grab your Primogems, and let's find out which Celestial Overlord deserves that coveted spot on your team. I'm quickly moving on to the video. Before we start, if you enjoy these types of list videos, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Enjoy watching! When it comes to the Archons of Genshin Impact, Zhongli stands tall as the Geo Archon. And let's be real, he's the ultimate shield bot. His elemental skill is an absolute game changer, creating a shield so strong that it makes all other forms of defense feel like a joke. You could be standing in the middle of a hilichurl dance party, and Zhongli's shield would still make sure you leave without a scratch. If protection is your game, this guy is your MVP. But here's the catch. Zhongli doesn't bring much else to the table. His elemental burst is fine. It's flashy, it's cool, and it can freeze enemies in their tracks for a second, but it's not exactly shattering the meta. Sure, his ability to shred enemy resistance is helpful, but it's not the kind of thing that will make your jaw drop. Compared to later Archons like Raiden Shogun or Nahida, Zhongli feels more like a one-trick pony. A very sturdy, immovable pony. But still. Now, does that make him bad? Absolutely not. Zhongli excels in his niche. He's perfect for anyone who hates dodging or just wants to vibe while their shield tanks everything. But if you're looking for an all-rounder Archon who can dish out crazy damage or provide team-wide buffs, you might find him a bit underwhelming. At the end of the day, though, there's something undeniably satisfying about having a shield so strong you can tank a Ruin Guard's punch like it's nothing.
Let's talk about Venti, the Anemo Archon, the Bard of Mondstadt, and arguably one of the most carefree characters in Genshin Impact. When it comes to Venti, you're not just pulling for a character, you're pulling for a game changer. He's the walking embodiment of freedom and wind, which makes sense because Anemo is all about letting things flow. But don't let his laid-back, wine-loving persona fool you. This guy is dangerous. If there's a crowd of enemies, Venti doesn't just fight them, he practically deletes them from existence. The secret sauce? His elemental burst, Wind's Grand Ode. Imagine a miniature black hole that pulls in enemies, swirling them around helplessly while you rain down elemental damage. It's the strongest crowd control in the game and a joy to watch in action. Got a horde of hilichurls blocking your way? Not anymore. Abyss mages giving you a hard time? Say goodbye to those shields. Venti doesn't fight fair, and honestly, that's what makes him so fun to play. But of course, such power couldn't go unchecked. The devs caught on and started introducing more enemies immune to his burst, making him less universally broken, but still very much a beast in the right situations. So, is Venti still worth it? Absolutely, if you want a character who turns chaos into order. He's not just a tool to improve your account, he's an experience. The freedom of flight, the joy of pulling enemies into a swirling vortex, and that mischievous smirk as he drinks his apple cider in peace, it's all part of the package. If you're building your team and looking for an Archon to shake things up, Venti might just be your guy. Let's talk about one of the most iconic Archons in Genshin Impact, the Raiden Shogun. As the Electro Archon, A embodies everything you'd expect from a leader of this element. Insane synergy with energy recharge, top-tier burst support, and of course, overwhelming power. If you've ever struggled with managing your team's elemental bursts, this is the character that swoops in and says, "Don't worry, I've got you." Seriously, she's a game changer for anyone looking to streamline their rotations. What makes Raiden Shogun so special? It's her ability to reward high burst costs like no other. She doesn't just handle her own energy needs, she powers up her entire team. Characters like Xiangling or Xingqiu, who rely heavily on their elemental bursts, thrive with Raiden in the mix. Every time your teammates use their bursts, I get stronger, and in return, she buffs your allies' burst damage as well. It's this give-and-take mechanic that makes her such a flexible and satisfying unit to play. Plus, her burst hits like a truck, so it's not just support. she's dishing out crazy damage while holding the team together. And here's the kicker. Raiden doesn't just free up your team's energy needs, she redefines how you build them. With Ai on your side, you can say goodbye to stacking energy recharge on everyone. Instead, focus on offensive stats like ATK and crit, which means more raw damage across the board. It's like she's telling you, relax, I'll handle the hard stuff. That's why Raiden Shogun isn't just the face of the Electro element. She's the backbone of any team that needs consistent bursts of power. Let's talk about Nahida and why she's the ultimate game changer among the Archons in Genshin Impact. When the Sumeru update dropped, it didn't just introduce a new region, it flipped the entire meta on its head. Dendro, the new element, brought reactions like Bloom, Hyper Bloom, Aggravate, and Spread. And suddenly, characters we'd written off like Keqing were making their glorious comeback. Dendro turned the game into a playground for experimentation, but let's be real. Nahida? She's not just part of the playground, she owns it. Unlike other Dendro characters, Nahida feels like she was built with one mission: redefining what it means to be a support. Her elemental skill is a masterpiece. It marks enemies, spreads Dendro like wildfire, and lets you trigger reactions without her even being on the field. And, as if that wasn't enough, she buffs your team's elemental mastery, making your reactions hit harder and your enemies regret their life choices. She's not just a support, she's the backbone of some of the strongest teams in the game. But here's the wild part. Nahida isn't just a must-have because of what she does. She's a glimpse of what an Archon is supposed to be. Every Archon has left their mark on the game. Venti's crowd control, Zhongli's shields, Raiden's energy regen, but Nahida takes it further. She's a reminder that Genshin Impact isn't just about numbers or meta. It's about building teams that feel fun, characters that feel irreplaceable, and gameplay that keeps evolving. Let's talk about one of the most fascinating Archons in Genshin Impact, and honestly, she's nothing like we've seen before. You've got Barbatos, Zhongli, Raiden Shogun, and Nahida, all incredible in their own right. But then there's Mavuika, the Pyro Archon. She's Natlan's fierce protector, and she's breaking all the rules. Unlike the other Archons who are tied to gods, deities, or beings beyond human comprehension, Mavuika is just a human who stepped up and earned the mantle of divinity. And let's not forget that futuristic motorbike. Seriously, who else in Teyvat is pulling up with that kind of style? Now, gameplay-wise, Mavuika is just as legendary as her lore. Her damage scaling? Off the charts. If you're looking for a main DPS that can melt through enemies, she's the one. But here's the kicker, she's also an incredible off-field support. That's rare in Genshin. She buffs your active character while still dishing out consistent damage herself. So even when she's not on the field, her presence is felt. Of course, her kit has some quirks you'll need to master, but once you do, she's a game changer. Every second she's on your team feels like you're wielding the power of a true Archon. What makes Mavuika stand out even more is her personality. She's fiery, pun intended, and unrelenting, embodying everything you'd expect from a Pyro Archon. But there's also this underlying humanity. She's not just a god looking down on mortals. She was one, and she fights with that same spirit. Whether you're exploring the far corners of Teyvat or taking down bosses, Mavuika adds a spark, literally and figuratively, that no other Archon quite matches. If you haven't added her to your roster yet, what are you waiting for? Let's talk about one of Genshin Impact's most fascinating Archons, Furina, the former Hydro Archon of Fontaine. On the surface, she seems like a playful diva, more interested in dramatic flair and theater than actual governing. But as we dig deeper into her story, Furina reveals herself to be one of the most complex and tragic characters in the game. She carries the legacy of the old Fontainian Archon, Focalors, embodying their non-divine physical remains. That's right, Furina isn't your typical Archon, she's a blend of charm, heartbreak, and mystery, making her one of Fontaine's most beloved figures. Now, let's talk gameplay. Furina isn't just a feast for the story lovers, she's a powerhouse on the battlefield too. Her kit revolves around manipulating HP values, which is a unique twist compared to other characters. Her elemental skill drains your party's HP every second, but that's not a downside. It's the key to unlocking her incredible potential. Paired with a healer or self-sustaining characters like Neuvillette or Ryuthisli, she becomes a damage-dealing and buff-giving machine. Her Hydro manifestations add an adorable yet deadly touch, zipping around the field and chipping away at enemies with surprising efficiency. And then there's her Elemental Burst. Oh boy, this is where she truly shines. If you can manage the HP manipulation conditions, Furina delivers one of the biggest buffs in Genshin Impact history. It's the kind of burst that makes your team feel unstoppable, turning even tough battles into a spectacle of hydro brilliance. Whether you're here for her story, her aesthetic, or her game-changing utility, Furina is an absolute must-have for any traveler looking to make waves, literally, in Teyvat. The video ends here. See you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe.